let's stick with the news from Brussels and take a look at some of the reactions and coverage of events and investigations there, indeed, online and in other media with James Creedon. Hi there, James.
Hi, Catherine.
Yes, on social media, there's a lot of coverage and interest, of course, continuing.
That's right. And indeed, there has been some criticism for the role of social media in covering this story. It's not the first time that we've seen, I think I was talking about this a little bit yesterday as well, the criticism of a sort of unequal coverage of attacks depending on where they happen. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a lot of factors involved there depending on a city like Brussels, the capital of Belgium, the capital of the European Union, the headquarters of NATO. Clearly, there's going to be a lot of focus on a disaster or something like this happening there, and in particular from across the border in France, we're obviously very concerned about what happens just over the border. Yeah. But there are a lot of articles such as this one saying Turkish people are sharing this cartoon, asking where our sympathy was for Istanbul and Ankara. Now that is I suppose you could say a photoshopped cartoon. Originally, it was by Plantu, the cartoonist for Le Monde. This is the original down here. It was shared very much across the board yesterday. And today, Turkey, which has suffered 4 horrific attacks in the last number of weeks, is I suppose, some are saying via this cartoon, perhaps they would have liked to have had as much coverage of the tragedies that affected them. Now, you can see even in that cartoon, it's unfairly represented because indeed France... there was the Charlie Hebdo attacks in January, so it's not exactly. I'm not sure.
It's not a competition, is it? It's not a tragedy competition.
That's exactly it. It's not. But it is a point that has been made in the past, and indeed elsewhere in the Independent, they are talking about municipalities, government responses as well, perhaps not being fully equal. And this is an interesting one, just from the point of view of how social media choose to. Moderate or get involved in something like this. Recently, Facebook introduced a safety check mechanism whereby for users of the social network, you can reassure family and friends that you are safe. Now, they brought that in a somewhat tardy manner in Brussels, and people were actually outraged. It's funny because it's a new facility, and now it's almost as if the users of Facebook expect it in a moment of crisis.
Almost like a public service.
That's right. Now, again, to come back to the attacks in Ankara, there was a safety check-in facility provided in Ankara, but for example, the flag superimposed upon your profile photo, which we saw after the Paris attacks on the 13th of November, that was also provided for Facebook users in Belgium, but not in Turkey. So, in fact, Facebook, I would suspect, I think would be better off to stick to its role as a social network, a platform for people to interact, instead of actually getting involved in and providing sort of specific mechanisms for people to either confirm safety or demonstrate solidarity. Because where does it go from there? You know, I mean, there are tragedies. What is the minimum level of tragedy for them to actually take a stand?
Indeed, every life lost is of equal value, of course. Next, let's move on to how rolling news channels have covered the story. Of course, here at France 24, we have been giving extra live coverage to what's been going on in Brussels, and as have many others.
That's right. And Telerama.fr has been speaking to a psychologist. Now, it's something I think in every, certainly newsroom where we're dealing with rolling news, it is something that one should be aware of, that in a bid to cover events as they unfold, sometimes mistakes can be made. For example, interviewing somebody who's clearly traumatized or allowing the camera to stay on somebody who actually perhaps would rather not be filmed. And there was one photo today that was on the front page of a lot of newspapers of a woman at the airport. You may have seen it. She was wearing a yellow top.
Yeah.
And actually France 24 decided not to broadcast that photo. And I personally think that was the right decision, because it is important to remember the dignity of the people caught in these situations as well.
She hadn't been asked for her name. She hadn't been asked to have the photo taken.
That's right. Yeah. And what the psychologist Marianne Kedia says here is sometimes rolling news channels behave almost like a traumatized brain in terms of staying with the source of the trauma.
All right, thanks so much, James Creedon, our media editor there.